We hired a new employee to fill the vacancy in the HR department. The HR department recruited a new employee to occupy the vacant position. He finally defeated his lifelong opponent. At last, he overcame his lifelong rival. Environmental pollution is destroying the ecosystem of birds. Pollution of the environment is devastating the bird ecosystem. The police detained the drunk driver in the holding cell. The authorities confined the intoxicated driver in a detention cell. Christianity inhibits smoking and drinking for the faithful. Christianity discourages smoking and drinking among its followers. The police were alarmed by the consecution of recent violent crimes. The police were disturbed by the succession of recent violent offenses. Iran and Iraq signed a peace treaty immediately. Iran and Iraq promptly concluded a peace agreement. The witness described the criminal's appearance accurately. The witness accurately portrayed the criminal's physical appearance. His decision to cancel the contract was a sensible judgment. His decision to annul the contract was a reasonable judgment. The Village Festival is held locally and nationwide. The Village Festival takes place both locally and nationally. On the subway, she reclined on his shoulder. In the subway, she rested her head on his shoulder. He was a math genius who could calculate calculus at the age of 10. He was a mathematical prodigy capable of calculating calculus at the age of 10. Electricity flows well through wires made of copper. Electricity passes efficiently through copper wires. There was no viable escape route while trapped in prison. No feasible escape route existed while confined in prison. The scammer seduced the young man into gambling. The fraudster enticed the young man into indulging in gambling. He expanded his private company into an incorporated one. He transformed his private business into a corporation. The patient, in a daze, gazed out the window at the rain. The patient, in a daze, stared out the window at the rain. The Roman emperor made the gladiators fight lions in the arena. The Roman emperor commanded the gladiators to battle lions in the arena. He was initially pessimistic about business, but later turned optimistic. Initially, he was pessimistic about the business, but later became optimistic. Racial discrimination is a major issue in the multi-ethnic country of the United States. Racial discrimination remains a significant issue in the multi-ethnic United States. The committee is comprised of representatives from each department. The committee consists of representatives from every department. The plane gradually began its descent to land. The airplane slowly started its descent in preparation for landing. The court ordered to release the classified information. The court directed the release of the classified information. The child felt a strong fascination with Lego assembly. The child was deeply fascinated by Lego building. Handle fragile items like pottery with care. Treat delicate items, such as pottery, with caution. I blocked the penetration of light in the darkroom with aluminum foil. I prevented light from entering the darkroom by using aluminum foil. The math prodigy easily solved the third-degree equation. The math prodigy effortlessly solved the third-degree equation. The drug addict went to prison several times due to drugs. The drug addict was incarcerated multiple times because of drugs. Samsung Semiconductor increased its factory investment. Samsung Semiconductor boosted its investment in factories. I sprayed insecticide on the grass to get rid of pests. I applied insecticide to the grass in order to eliminate pests. His tardiness completely spoiled our trip. His lateness utterly ruined our trip. She whispered softly, but it was audible to my ear. She murmured gently, but it was still audible to me. My son kept pestering me for an allowance. My son continually begged me for an allowance. Air contamination is severe due to garbage incineration. Air pollution is serious because of waste incineration. The building was constructed by conforming to the facility rules. The building was erected in accordance with the facility regulations. The students protested against the repressive regime. The students rallied against the oppressive regime. The desolate desert of the Sahara had only sand. The barren Sahara Desert consisted solely of sand. The dictator dismissed the people's request for voting rights. The dictator rejected the people's demand for voting rights. The smuggled goods were immediately forfeited at the airport. The smuggled goods were promptly seized at the airport. The religious community demanded the abolition of the death penalty from the government. The religious community called for the abolition of the death penalty by the government. I have never committed a sin like stealing things. I have never engaged in an immoral act such as theft. The really daring prisoner escaped through the checkpoint. The exceptionally brave prisoner managed to break free through the checkpoint. He bought an exquisite metal craft as a souvenir. He purchased a delicate and finely crafted metal artwork as a memento. I dehydrated roses for the flower decoration. I dried roses for use in the floral arrangement. The nanny was very affectionate with the kindergarten children. The caregiver displayed a great deal of warmth and affection toward the preschool children. I noticed the scammer's clever deception. I observed the fraudster's cunning trickery. The clerk packed the cheese chunk in a plastic bag and sold it. The shop assistant wrapped the piece of cheese in a plastic bag and sold it. He was shocked to see the price of the clothes on the tag. He was stunned by the price displayed on the clothing tag. She hurriedly wrote the meeting location on a piece of scrap paper. She swiftly wrote down the location of the meeting on a scrap of paper. He contracted an incurable disease, terminal lung cancer. He was diagnosed with an untreatable illness, terminal lung cancer. The company meeting was canceled due to the scanty attendance. The company meeting was called off due to the insufficient attendance. The government tried to eliminate bureaucracy and red tape. The government attempted to remove bureaucracy and unnecessary procedures. The student asked the math instructor an insightful question. The student posed a thoughtful and perceptive question to the math instructor. She pondered her career path after graduating from college. She reflected on her career direction after completing her college education. In a hierarchical society, social mobility was impossible. In a class-based society, upward mobility was unattainable. Hunting was banned for preservation of wildlife. Hunting was prohibited to safeguard wildlife preservation. He raised his hand and asked a question without any hesitation. He lifted his hand and inquired without the slightest hesitation. The salesperson earned the customer's absolute credibility. The salesperson gained the customer's complete trust and confidence. He worked in a subdued mood after the trip was canceled. He worked with a somber mood after the trip was called off. Are you implying that he is a scammer right now? Are you suggesting that he is currently a fraudster? He wasted money on purchasing extravagance. He squandered money on buying luxurious items. The nobility rebelled against the imperial authority. The aristocracy rose in revolt against the imperial power. The pulse of the severe heart disease patient was too feeble. The pulse of the patient with severe heart disease was too weak. I commute to work by subway to a company in the suburbs. I travel to work by subway to a company located in the outskirts. He gave generous patronage to the charity. He provided significant support to the charity. She always had to be careful of overeating due to her metabolic disorder. She had to be cautious of overeating because of her metabolic disorder. My sweater is made with threads of various colors, which are interwoven. My sweater is crafted with threads of different colors that are woven together. The analyst's prediction of Apple's stock price was very accurate. The analyst's forecast of Apple's stock price was highly precise. The possibility of recovery for the critical patient was very slim. The chance of recovery for the critically ill patient was extremely low. Pope Paul VI appointed cardinals and bishops. Pope Paul VI selected cardinals and bishops for appointments. The volcanic eruption triggered seismic activity on the seafloor. The volcanic eruption caused seismic activity on the ocean floor. She turned off the lights and darkened the room for the prayer meeting. She switched off the lights and dimmed the room for the prayer session. I spent a hectic week last week because of a business trip. I had a busy week last week due to a business trip. The suicide bomber attacked the cathedral in the city center. The suicide bomber targeted the cathedral in the city center. The assassin stabbed the victim's abdomen with a dagger. The assassin pierced the victim's abdomen with a dagger. This year, we suffered enormous losses due to the drought. This year, we experienced massive losses due to the drought. She is a loyal subscriber to our magazine. She is a faithful subscriber to our magazine. This microscope can magnify an object up to 100 times. This microscope can enlarge an object up to 100 times. She adapted well to living abroad, which was unfamiliar. She adjusted well to living overseas, which was unfamiliar. An extrovert easily gets along with people they meet for the first time. An extrovert quickly bonds with people they meet for the first time. The Advertising Association regulated indirect advertising on television. The advertising organization controlled indirect advertising on television. The blacksmith made an axe out of iron in the forge. The blacksmith crafted an axe from iron in the forge. I made a resolution to quit smoking this year. I made a decision to stop smoking this year. The school notified the successful candidates by text message. The school informed the successful candidates via text message. He sprayed deodorant due to the terrible odor of his clothes. He applied deodorant because of the unpleasant smell of his clothes. I was dumbfounded by his absurd response for a while. I was stunned by his ridiculous answer for a moment. The new cancer treatment selectively kills only cancer cells. The new cancer therapy specifically targets and kills only cancer cells. The clown completely changed the mood of the depressed crowd. The clown entirely shifted the mood of the gloomy crowd. I transact goods through an online shopping mall. I conduct transactions for goods through an online store. I was annoyed by the reporter's persistent questions. I was irritated by the reporter's continuous questions. The pastor preached to the heathens on the street. The pastor delivered a sermon to the heathens on the street. The view from the mountaintop was spectacular. The view from the top of the mountain was breathtaking. Monkeys, gorillas, and humans are all anthropoid. Monkeys, gorillas, and humans are all part of the anthropoid family. The CEO suggested a corporate name change. The CEO proposed a change of the corporate name. Half of the members of parliament expressed their opposition to this law. Half of the members of parliament voiced their opposition to this legislation. A consensus was reached among the meeting participants. A consensus was achieved among the participants of the meeting. She went on a business trip to the U.S. with a pressing engagement. She traveled to the U.S. on a business trip due to an urgent commitment. I was praised by the teacher for being a conscientious student. I was commended by the teacher for being a diligent student. The skilled technician fixed the broken computer. The proficient technician repaired the malfunctioning computer. The government awarded medals for the soldiers' valor and sacrifice. The government bestowed medals on the soldiers for their bravery and sacrifice. The biologist knows both aquatic and terrestrial creatures well. The biologist is knowledgeable about both aquatic and land-based creatures. As he got older, he relied on an oral device for help when listening. As he aged, he depended on an auditory device for assistance while listening. The actor's handsome face was reflected in the mirror. The actor's attractive face appeared in the mirror. The world issued a denunciation against the terrorists. The world issued a condemnation against the terrorists. The young CEO is a direct descendant of the company's founder. The young CEO is a direct descendant of the founder of the company. The refugee camp set up by the government was filled with evacuees. The refugee camp established by the government was full of evacuees. Human life is fleeting, but death is eternal. Human life is transient, but death is forever. The farmer nourished the apple tree to help it grow well. The farmer nurtured the apple tree to promote its growth. We decided to postpone the meeting until tomorrow. We chose to delay the meeting until tomorrow. The army held the prisoners in detention until the trial. The army kept the prisoners in custody until the trial. I made an unintentional mistake by stepping on his foot hard. I made an accidental mistake by stepping on his foot too hard. People envied my splendid outfit. People admired my magnificent outfit. Saudi Arabia was prosperous due to oil exports. Saudi Arabia thrived because of its oil exports. The little boy grudgingly admitted his mistake to his mom. The little boy reluctantly confessed his mistake to his mother. A sly con artist deceived innocent people. A crafty con artist tricked innocent people. The landlord signed a 2-year lease agreement with the tenant. The landlord entered into a 2-year lease agreement with the tenant. I focused on prayer to purge my bad thoughts. I concentrated on prayer to cleanse my mind of negative thoughts. Our house's wallpaper has a linear design, not flowers. The wallpaper in our house features a linear design, not flowers. The magazine publishes a periodical at the beginning of each month. The magazine releases a periodical at the start of each month. This class demonstrated high academic achievement. This class exhibited outstanding academic performance. He was so obstinate that he only insisted on his own opinion. He was so stubborn that he only insisted on his personal viewpoint. This colorful mushroom was inedible because it was poisonous. This vibrant mushroom was inedible due to its toxicity. Ecologists have always advocated the importance of environmental protection. Ecologists have consistently supported the significance of environmental conservation. The actor had a muscular, masculine charm. The actor possessed a muscular, manly charm. Nowadays, furniture's durability is so good that it lasts a long time. Today, furniture's durability is so excellent that it endures for a long time. The small boat capsized after being swept by the river's rapids. The small boat overturned after being carried away by the river's swift currents. I spent a delightful time with my friend at the ball. I had an enjoyable time with my friend at the ball. He played the violin as a member of the quartet. He performed on the violin as part of the quartet. Our eyes quickly became adaptive in the dark. Our eyes swiftly adjusted to the darkness. This year, applicants for the Artificial Intelligence Department were swarming. This year, applicants for the Artificial Intelligence Department flooded in. We stopped the business after a reciprocal agreement. We ceased the business after reaching a reciprocal agreement. He is fettered by the customs of religion and has no freedom of action. He is constrained by religious customs and has no freedom of action. The patient was bedridden after injuring his spine in the accident. The patient was confined to bed after injuring his spine in the accident. I still can't forget the awful fear of the earthquake. I still cannot forget the dreadful fear of the earthquake. He learned arithmetic and Korean in elementary school. He studied arithmetic and Korean in elementary school. The industrious assistant was promoted to manager. The diligent assistant was elevated to the position of manager. Salmon spawned by returning to the river where they were born in the fall. Salmon lay their eggs by returning to the river where they were born in the autumn. Measles spread rapidly to the neighboring village. Measles quickly spread to the neighboring village. If a blood vessel is blocked, a heart attack occurs. A heart attack occurs if a blood vessel is blocked. The psychiatrist counseled the mentally ill patients in the ward. The psychiatrist provided counseling to the mentally ill patients in the ward. The latest AI speaker has excellent voice recognition. The most recent AI speaker possesses superior voice recognition capabilities. The examiner checked the fabric flakes from the crime scene. The investigator inspected the fabric remnants found at the crime scene. When I greeted him, he gave a puzzled expression. Upon my greeting, he responded with a bewildered look. The task force regulated the parking next to the fire hydrant. The task force enforced parking restrictions near the fire hydrant. We watched the election results with apprehension. We observed the election outcomes with a sense of anxiety. His lyric poetry contains many figurative expressions. His poetic works include numerous metaphorical expressions. Elephant hunting is an immoral and unethical act. Hunting elephants is a morally reprehensible and unethical activity. We traveled to a faraway uninhabited island. We journeyed to a distant uninhabited island. The agenda for this meeting included unemployment issues. The meeting's agenda encompassed discussions about unemployment matters. The government prohibited selling alcohol to minors. The government banned the sale of alcohol to underage individuals. The salesperson's skilled explanation was persuasive. The salesperson's adept explanation proved to be convincing. I felt constrained to tell the truth. I felt compelled to reveal the truth. He lived in isolation on a deserted island. He resided in complete seclusion on a desolate island. The drunk man staggered dangerously on the road. The intoxicated man staggered perilously across the road. The new employee received a cordial welcome from the company staff. The new hire was warmly greeted by the company personnel. He disclosed the hidden past of the opponent. He revealed the opponent's concealed history. I calculated the necessary approximate amount of money for getting married. I estimated the required approximate sum of money for marriage. The dictator requested political exile after stepping down. The dictator sought political asylum after his resignation. The company considered giving bonuses to raise the employees' morale. The company deliberated on providing bonuses to improve employee morale. The judge created a shortlist for the literary award. The judge compiled a preliminary list of candidates for the literary award. The designer induced the client to sign the insurance contract. The designer persuaded the client to execute the insurance contract. It might have been the placebo effect, but I got sick after taking the vitamin. It may have been the placebo effect, but I fell ill subsequent to taking the vitamin. She dozed off on the bus and missed her destination. She drifted into slumber on the bus and failed to reach her destination. Conan is a detective with great powers of reasoning. Conan is a detective endowed with remarkable powers of deduction. The manager was discharged from his position due to bribery charges. The manager was dismissed from his post owing to charges of bribery. The first letter of every sentence must be capitalized. The initial letter of each sentence must be capitalized. This academy's quality of education has been vastly improved recently. The educational standards of this academy have been significantly enhanced of late. Irresponsible deforestation has reduced animal habitats. Reckless deforestation has led to a reduction in animal habitats. He is known for his eccentricity, which harms his reputation. He is renowned for his idiosyncrasy, which detracts from his reputation. I was utterly indifferent to my son's schoolwork. I was wholly indifferent to my son's academic endeavors. The airline strike coincided with our trip. The airline strike occurred concurrently with our journey. I became maddened when I realized that I had been deceived by him. I became infuriated when I recognized that I had been deceived by him. He adjusted the microscope's focus on the specimen. He calibrated the microscope's focus to examine the specimen. The singer, in particular, received overwhelming support from the public. The singer, particularly, garnered overwhelming public support. We brought radiation detection equipment to Japan. We transported radiation detection apparatus to Japan. She was so angry that she tried to slap his cheek. She was so enraged that she attempted to strike his cheek. The comparison of the two vacuum cleaners wasn't easy. The comparison between the two vacuum cleaners proved to be challenging. His idea was feasible even with current technology. His concept was practical even with the present-day technology. Mangoes are delicious fruits that grow in tropical climates. Mangoes are exquisite fruits that flourish in tropical regions. She is a designer working for an architectural firm. She is a designer employed by an architectural firm. In mathematics, there are subset, intersection, and union in sets. In the field of mathematics, subsets, intersections, and unions are present within sets. The human heart functions like a pump and is analogous to one. The human heart operates similarly to a pump and is comparable to one. The elementary students took a dictation test during their Korean class. The elementary school students underwent a dictation test during their Korean class. Oxygen and hydrogen combine chemically to form water. Oxygen and hydrogen chemically bond to produce water. The scientist had extensive expertise in physics. The scientist possessed profound expertise in the field of physics. The nutritionist provided the patient with nutritious food. The nutritionist supplied the patient with nourishing food. The humanities professor discoursed on Greek mythology. The humanities professor delivered a discourse on Greek mythology. He read poetry while listening to bland music. He read poetry while listening to monotonous music. Modern people find consolation and hope in religion. Contemporary individuals find solace and hope in religion. The public sports arena hosted basketball and volleyball games. The public sports arena accommodated basketball and volleyball games. He was willing to accept my offer to help. He was amenable to accepting my offer of assistance. His chiseled face made his cheekbones appear prominent. His sculpted face made his cheekbones stand out prominently. She is in a state of despair due to continuous misfortune. She is in a state of despair as a result of ongoing misfortunes. His actions were in conflict with his words. His actions contradicted his words. He eliminated the opponent through a conspiracy. He removed the opponent by means of a conspiracy. He is kind and forgiving toward strangers. He is compassionate and forgiving toward unfamiliar individuals. He threw a stone into the tranquil lake, creating ripples. He cast a stone into the serene lake, generating ripples. He is a veritable hero who saved the country from the enemy. He is a true hero who rescued the nation from the enemy. The peasant farmed rice by renting land from the Lord. The peasant cultivated rice by leasing land from the Lord. I recorded my desert exploration as a fun pictorial journal. I documented my desert exploration as an enjoyable pictorial journal. I made every endeavor to persuade him. I made every effort to convince him. I fought with my husband over the issue of political affiliation. I quarreled with my husband over the matter of political affiliation. The spy decoded the email written in code. The spy deciphered the email composed in code. The crafty wolf deceived the innocent country girl. The cunning wolf beguiled the innocent country girl. What is the prevailing fashion in Korea these days? What is the predominant fashion in Korea these days? The baseball player received autographs from pitcher Park Chan-ho. The baseball player obtained autographs from pitcher Park Chan-ho. The professor quoted Plato's philosophy in his lecture. The professor referenced Plato's philosophy in his lecture. I vacated the room for the next tenant. I relinquished the room for the next tenant. The horror movie enthralled the audience throughout the entire screening. The horror film captivated the audience throughout the entire screening. The country was completely impoverished by the war. The country was utterly impoverished by the ravages of war. The judge convicted the murderer of first-degree murder. The judge found the murderer guilty of first-degree murder. Persistence in not giving up is the key to success. Persistence in not yielding is the key to success. I was imprudent enough to trust the scammer. I was reckless enough to place my trust in the scammer. His brave deed saved us from danger. His courageous action saved us from imminent peril. The soldier broke through the siege and delivered the message to the army headquarters. The soldier breached the siege and conveyed the message to the army headquarters. The investor had a foresight for investing in new technologies. The investor possessed foresight for investing in emerging technologies. I reclaimed wasteland with a plow and oxen. I reclaimed barren land with a plow and oxen. He felt mortality from the thin air in the spacecraft. He felt the sensation of mortality due to the thin air in the spacecraft. She enjoyed the ascent and descent of the seesaw. She delighted in the ascent and descent of the seesaw. The surgeon perfectly operated on my broken leg. The surgeon flawlessly performed surgery on my fractured leg. He converted the unused basement into a study. He transformed the unused basement into a study. The seal and crown are emblematic of royal power. The seal and crown symbolize royal authority. Her job is as an English simultaneous interpreter. Her occupation is that of an English simultaneous interpreter. It was a regrettable event that you didn't attend the party. It was unfortunate that you failed to attend the party. After a long discussion, we reached consonance in our opinions. After a lengthy discussion, we achieved harmony in our views. My parents were in denial about my marriage. My parents were in denial regarding my marriage. The person betrayed was turning red with immense fury. The betrayed person was flushing with intense anger. The thief, a model prisoner, was released on parole for a holiday. The thief, a model prisoner, was granted parole for a holiday. The X-Men are mutant superheroes. The X-Men are mutants with superhuman abilities. The expired documents were permanently discarded. The expired documents were permanently discarded. Betty was praised for being a hard-working student. Betty was commended for being a diligent student. The village commission inspected their area for safety. The village committee inspected their area for safety precautions. He was dismal because his close friend moved away yesterday. He was despondent because his close friend moved away yesterday. I lived a life of seclusion in a mountain with no one around. I led a secluded life in a mountain with no one around. The apartment has a harmonious design with its surroundings. The apartment features a harmonious design that complements its surroundings. I stumbled and fell over a computer cable. I tripped and fell over a computer cable. Back then, students were commandeered for the war. At that time, students were conscripted for the war. The car has a complicated structure. The car possesses a complex structure. The driver's sleep deprivation led to the accident. The driver's sleep deprivation caused the accident. The CEO gave an incentive speech to the employees at the meeting. The CEO delivered an incentive speech to the employees during the meeting. I earned roughly 5 million won from business this month. I earned approximately 5 million won from my business endeavors this month. The political analyst analyzed the positions of both the ruling and opposition parties. The political analyst examined the positions of both the ruling and opposition parties. The English dictionary is small and very handy to carry around. The English dictionary is compact and exceptionally convenient to carry. I prepared a PPT to explain effectively. I prepared a PowerPoint presentation to explain effectively. He is still dependent on his parents for living expenses. He remains reliant on his parents for living expenses. Community cohesion is even more important when it's difficult. Community cohesion becomes even more crucial during difficult times. The singer impressed the audience with his great song. The singer captivated the audience with his remarkable song. Bears and snakes enter a dormant state during the winter. Bears and snakes enter a hibernation state during the winter. The author briefly explained the gist of the book in the lecture. The author succinctly summarized the essence of the book in the lecture. The weather is variable during the rainy season, so an umbrella is essential. The weather is unpredictable during the rainy season, making an umbrella essential. The magazine's deadline was this Friday. The magazine's deadline was set for this Friday. She worked hard to get into a prestigious university. She exerted great effort to gain admission to a prestigious university. The journalist asked the spokesperson an abrupt question. The journalist posed an abrupt question to the spokesperson. Many animals froze to death due to the extreme cold. Many animals perished from the extreme cold. The British troops defeated the German tank division. The British forces triumphed over the German tank division. I can exercise my right to vote now that I have reached adulthood. I can now exercise my right to vote since I have attained adulthood. The IT industry is about the integration of information and technology. The IT industry revolves around the integration of information and technology. Psychology is the study of the human mind. Psychology is the study of the human psyche. The seller and buyer each signed the contract. Both the seller and the buyer signed the contract. The legislator proposed a law for the admission system. The legislator introduced a bill for the admission system. The criminal was found guilty due to the witness's testimony. The criminal was found guilty due to the witness's testimony. Children who misbehave are not greeted warmly by adults. Children who misbehave are not greeted warmly by adults. She parked her motorcycle next to my car. She parked her motorcycle next to my car. I desire to construct and reside in a rustic house in the countryside. I desire to construct and reside in a rustic house in the countryside. When I speak, muscles and neurons cooperate. When I speak, muscles and neurons cooperate. I provided an honest opinion about her painting. I provided an honest opinion about her painting. The prosecutor filed an indictment against him for fraud. The prosecutor filed an indictment against him for fraud. The desire for money and power is part of human nature. The desire for money and power is part of human nature. The multinational pharmaceutical corporation backed genetics research. The multinational pharmaceutical corporation backed genetics research. The charter was established by national leaders collaborating. The charter was established by national leaders collaborating. I have been unable to sleep for several days due to sleeplessness. I have been unable to sleep for several days due to sleeplessness. She kept the clothes she didn't wear in the warehouse. She kept the clothes she didn't wear in the warehouse. My heart raced with joy from winning. My heart raced with joy from winning. A confession made under duress was ruled inadmissible. A confession made under duress was ruled inadmissible. The nurse disinfected the surgical instruments. The nurse disinfected the surgical instruments. The Olympic Committee informed the members of the host city. The Olympic Committee informed the members of the host city. There are numerous videos on YouTube offering commentary on games. There are numerous videos on YouTube offering commentary on games. The mole burrowed holes throughout the garden. The mole burrowed holes throughout the garden. I relocated to Canada with my family when I was young. I relocated to Canada with my family when I was young. Are you familiar with the African language? Are you familiar with the African language? We raised livestock, such as chickens and pigs, on the farm. We raised various forms of livestock, including chickens and pigs, on the farm. He is a cynic who looks negatively at celebrities' donations. He is a cynic who scrutinizes celebrity donations with disdain. In the war, brutal deaths occurred frequently. During the war, numerous brutal deaths occurred with alarming regularity. Her movements while dancing the waltz were flawless. Her movements while performing the waltz were executed flawlessly. The viewers were upset due to the disruption in the soccer broadcast. The viewers were distressed as a result of the disruption in the soccer broadcast. They lived in a crude house made of wood and grass. They resided in a rudimentary house constructed from wood and grass. She delicately decorated her younger brother's birthday cake. She intricately adorned her younger brother's birthday cake. I tried to refrain from indiscriminate consumption. I endeavored to abstain from indiscriminate consumption. Her boyfriend has exceedingly good manners. Her boyfriend exhibits remarkable manners. The interviewer tried to evaluate the candidate objectively. The interviewer sought to assess the candidate impartially. The assessment result of the old building was immediate demolition. The evaluation of the old building led to its immediate demolition. He felt resentment at the unfair conduct of the game. He experienced indignation due to the unjust conduct of the game. The conceptual types of cars include small, medium, and large sizes. The conceptual categories of cars encompass small, medium, and large sizes. The FBI selected professional agents for the operation. The FBI appointed highly trained agents for the operation. The house where my son won the competition had a festive atmosphere. The house where my son won the competition was filled with a celebratory atmosphere. I developed psychosis due to severe stress. I developed psychosis as a consequence of extreme stress. He became known as a considerate senior to his juniors. He earned a reputation as a thoughtful senior to his juniors. To us, pigeons are seen as an emblem of peace. To us, pigeons are regarded as symbols of peace. I have a particular soccer team that I genuinely support. I have a specific soccer team that I wholeheartedly support. The bomb inflicted severe damage on the city. The bomb caused catastrophic damage to the city. Journalists should write unbiased articles. Journalists ought to write impartial articles. Water's molecule is made up of oxygen and hydrogen atoms. The molecule of water consists of oxygen and hydrogen atoms. He mixed up the numbers to rearrange the presentation order. He rearranged the numbers to adjust the order of the presentation. The green light of the traffic signal means go, which denotes moving forward. The green light of the traffic signal signifies go, indicating movement forward. Obesity has a strong correlation with various adult diseases. Obesity is strongly correlated with various adult diseases. The mouth and stomach contain many enzymes necessary for digestion. The mouth and stomach house numerous enzymes vital for digestion. Bake the cake at 150 degrees Fahrenheit, not Celsius. Bake the cake at 150 degrees Fahrenheit, not in Celsius. The reporter disseminated false information to the public. The reporter spread misinformation to the public. Segregating white and black people was prohibited. The segregation of white and black people was banned. Sungyamun and Sokuram are tangible cultural heritage sites. Sungyamun and Sokuram are concrete cultural heritage sites. There was no sufficient evidence to detain the criminal. There was insufficient evidence to detain the criminal. Plants purify the air through photosynthesis during the day. Plants cleanse the air through photosynthesis during the day. I scattered salt and pepper on the steak. I sprinkled salt and pepper on the steak. The British Army outnumbered the natives by a large margin. The British Army outnumbered the natives by a significant margin. Hitler ruled Germany by creating a dictatorship. Hitler governed Germany by establishing a dictatorship. The shop signs fell due to the swirling gust of wind. The shop signs fell as a result of the swirling gust of wind. The second semester of English class will commence in August. The second semester of the English course will begin in August. His rude attitude disappointed the teacher. His impolite attitude disappointed the teacher. Her ceaseless studying resulted in success. Her relentless studying led to success. Salt can be considered a natural preservative. Salt is regarded as a natural preservative. The newspaper wrote an analysis article about approval ratings. The newspaper published an analytical article on approval ratings. A capitalist society is based on consumerism. A capitalist society is founded on consumerism. Patients with mental illness often have delusions of persecution. Patients suffering from mental illness frequently experience delusions of persecution. Authorization is required to enter this building. Authorization is necessary to access this building. In the past, Pluto was the 9th planet in the solar system. In the past, Pluto was considered the 9th planet in the solar system. He has an indescribable talent for playing the piano. He possesses an ineffable talent for playing the piano. The company had $1 million in smuggled money forfeited. The company had $1 million of smuggled money confiscated. Excessive smoking causes health problems such as lung cancer. Excessive smoking leads to health issues such as lung cancer. The wrestler choked his opponent into unconsciousness. The wrestler choked his opponent into a state of unconsciousness. To ensure simplicity in management, we standardize the suppliers. To ensure simplicity in management, we standardize the suppliers. I checked the expiration date before buying the milk. I verified the expiration date before purchasing the milk. Dogs are domesticated animals that live with humans. Dogs are domesticated animals that cohabit with humans. The highway was too congested during the holiday, so we took the bypass. The highway was excessively congested during the holiday, so we took the detour. Greece has archaeological ruins everywhere. Greece is home to archaeological ruins throughout the country. We must take responsibility for the consequences of our actions. We must bear responsibility for the consequences of our actions. My 7-year-old nephew is really playful and cute. My 7-year-old nephew is exceptionally playful and adorable. The king needs a forthright minister who speaks the truth. The king requires a forthright minister who speaks with honesty. He claimed there was no connection between the bomb attack and involvement. He asserted that there was no link between the bomb attack and the involvement. He is an egocentric person who only thinks about himself. He is a self-centered individual who only considers himself. The terrorist menaced an attack on Incheon Airport. The terrorist threatened an attack on Incheon Airport. He drove as a subsidiary job apart from his main occupation. He worked as a driver in a secondary role apart from his primary occupation. She snoozed at her desk during class time. She dozed off at her desk during class. The wicked witch cast a spell on Thumbelina. The malevolent witch placed a spell on Thumbelina. Artificial intelligence, like AlphaGo, is an emerging industry. Artificial intelligence, such as AlphaGo, is a rapidly developing industry. He has no recollection of the past due to after effects. He has no memory of the past due to the after effects. He worked as a correspondent for a broadcasting company in the US. He served as a correspondent for a broadcasting company in the United States. You should always wash your hands for personal hygiene. It is essential to wash your hands regularly for personal hygiene. Even twins have subtle differences when you look closely. Even twins exhibit subtle differences when observed closely. The Ministry of Education announced a sweeping change to the admission system. The Ministry of Education declared a comprehensive change to the admission system. He became angry, and the inflection in his voice increased. He became enraged, and the inflection in his voice heightened. The librarian asked to return the overdue book. The librarian requested the return of the overdue book. He lived a life of degradation due to drugs and alcohol. He lived a life of deterioration due to drugs and alcohol. Healthcare deserves all the emphasis it can get. Healthcare merits all the attention it can receive. The lawyer used jargon that was hard for ordinary people to understand. The lawyer employed legal jargon that was difficult for ordinary people to comprehend. The ship was laden with fruits and vegetables. The ship was loaded with fruits and vegetables. Taste in music and art is subjective. Taste in music and art is inherently subjective. The bus applies a fair discount for adolescents. The bus offers a fair discount for adolescents. My younger brother is my only sibling. My younger brother is my sole sibling. Galileo, who supported the heliocentric theory, disproved the geocentric theory. Galileo, who championed the heliocentric theory, refuted the geocentric theory. There were various native tribes in Africa. There were numerous indigenous tribes in Africa. Subsequently, he succeeded in losing 10 kilograms through exercise. He successfully lost 10 kilograms through exercise. Please write a brief self-introduction on the application form. Kindly provide a brief self-introduction on the application form. He alleged that the fire was not his fault. He claimed that the fire was not his responsibility. It's surprising that a car made 50 years ago is still operative. It is astonishing that a car manufactured 50 years ago is still operational. At school, Bully got in trouble for bullying his friends. At school, Bully faced consequences for bullying his peers. The civic group demanded the release of data from the government. The civic group called for the government to release the data. His good deeds were worthy of praise. His virtuous actions were deserving of praise. Daily chores like washing dishes and cleaning are very tiresome. Daily tasks such as washing dishes and cleaning are quite exhausting. We checked the itinerary for our trip to Hawaii. We reviewed the itinerary for our trip to Hawaii. Our house is too cramped, so we can't put a big sofa. Our house is too small to fit a large sofa. He proved his argument with past statistics. He substantiated his argument with historical statistics. Standing up suddenly after sitting for a while can cause dizziness. Standing up abruptly after sitting for a while can induce dizziness. The magician conjured a dove out of his hat. The magician summoned a dove from his hat. The hacker accessed the bank's computer server. The hacker infiltrated the bank's computer server. The priest found it hard to resist the temporal temptations. The priest struggled to resist the earthly temptations. She prefers a solitary trip over a group one. She prefers a solitary journey rather than a group one. Hansel navigated through the forest while watching the stones. Hansel traversed the forest while observing the stones. If the pillowcase gets dirty, uncover it for washing. If the pillowcase becomes dirty, remove it for washing. My mom disapproved after seeing my math grades. My mom expressed disapproval after seeing my math grades. Parents feel impotent when their child cries due to illness. Parents feel powerless when their child cries due to illness. God absolved them of the worldly sins they committed. God forgave them for the earthly sins they committed. He is a teacher who is truly devoted to his students. He is an educator who is genuinely dedicated to his students. I accepted his constructive suggestion. I accepted his helpful suggestion. I let the dough ferment for a day to make pizza. I allowed the dough to ferment for a day to prepare the pizza. After studying for an hour, I took a 10-minute relaxation break. After studying for an hour, I took a 10-minute rest break. He highly recommended that I watch that sci-fi movie. He strongly recommended that I watch that science fiction film. The king will never relinquish his power. The king will never surrender his power. I put the business plan in a briefcase and handed it over. I placed the business plan in a briefcase and handed it over. The court tried to arbitrate the dispute between the two companies. The court attempted to mediate the dispute between the two companies. This English word is hard for foreigners to pronounce. This English word is difficult for foreigners to pronounce. Jesus warned against adoration of idols. Jesus cautioned against the worship of idols. I learned binary calculations after studying decimal. I learned binary calculations after studying decimal numbers. We can't afford to buy a new car. We cannot afford to purchase a new car. He works in the company's administration department. He works in the company's administrative department. We lay in ambush in the canyon and waited for the enemy. We lay in wait in the canyon and waited for the enemy. The elderly man had to get dentures after losing his teeth due to cavities. The elderly man had to get dentures after losing his teeth to cavities. We managed to hold the event with an insufficient budget. We were able to hold the event despite the insufficient budget. College students are currently on vacation, so they are not coming to school. College students are currently on vacation, so they are not attending school. He slammed the door furiously after hearing the news of his dismissal. He slammed the door angrily after hearing the news of his dismissal. The sewer is clogged with trash, so the sewage doesn't drain properly. The sewer is blocked with trash, preventing the sewage from draining properly. He promised in writing and verbally that he supports me. He solemnly pledged, both in writing and verbally, that he would support me. We made unforgettable memories on our trip. We created indelible memories during our journey. The teacher recommended an educational book to the student. The teacher advised the student to read an educational book. The newspaper distributed a questionnaire to gather opinions. The newspaper disseminated a questionnaire in order to collect public opinions. He shuffled to the window as he had difficulty walking. He staggered to the window, for he struggled with walking. He always grumbled about his poor situation. He frequently lamented his unfortunate circumstances. The landlord prepared an ample meal for the guests. The landlord graciously prepared a lavish meal for the guests. She became angry and flushed after hearing his insults. She became incensed and her face reddened after hearing his insults. People with hypertension should be cautious about salt intake. Individuals with hypertension must exercise caution regarding salt consumption. English proficiency requires effort and a lot of time. Mastery of the English language demands dedication and time. Hence, you must wear a helmet for safety. Therefore, it is essential to wear a helmet for safety. It is necessary to isolate the person with mental illness. It is imperative to isolate individuals suffering from mental illness. The wreck was discovered deep under the Pacific Ocean. The wreckage was found deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. The leather company made briefcases from glossy leather. The leather company crafted briefcases from polished leather. His mistake can never be justified through rationalization. His mistake can never be excused through rationalization. She lived alone in an abandoned house because she was poor. She resided alone in a desolate house due to her poverty. The World Cup's hosting boosted Korea's status. Hosting the World Cup enhanced Korea's global standing. He dismisses other countries with an insular worldview. He disregards other nations with a narrow worldview. The economics lecture gave me many benefits. The economics lecture provided me with numerous benefits. Severe nausea can occur in the early stages of pregnancy. Intense nausea may occur in the early stages of pregnancy. Severe stress can weaken the immune system. Intense stress can undermine the immune system. As the end of the world approached, morality declined. As the end of the world neared, moral standards deteriorated. When speaking, be mindful of the listener's feelings as well. When speaking, be considerate of the listener's feelings as well. He showed a cynical reaction after hearing my plan. He displayed a cynical reaction upon hearing my plan. The mouse that woke the sleeping lion quivered in fear. The mouse that awakened the sleeping lion trembled in fear. A new sheriff has been appointed to our town. A new sheriff has been designated for our town. It is not rational to legitimize violence. It is illogical to justify violence. The evil witch enchanted her into a sleeping princess. The malevolent witch cast a spell on her, turning her into a sleeping princess. The father admonished his son for lying. The father reprimanded his son for telling lies. After the event, people surged toward the exit. After the event, the crowd surged toward the exit. Queen Elizabeth reigned over England for 45 years. Queen Elizabeth ruled over England for 45 years. The president worked to generate new jobs. The president endeavored to create new jobs. His name was lost to oblivion in people's memories. His name faded into obscurity in the minds of the people. She acceded to my request to study together. She consented to my request to study together. The wreck was discovered deep under the Pacific Ocean. The wreckage was found deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. The leather company made briefcases from glossy leather. The leather company crafted briefcases from polished leather. His mistake can never be justified through rationalization. His mistake can never be excused through rationalization. She lived alone in an abandoned house because she was poor. She resided alone in a desolate house due to her poverty. The World Cup's hosting boosted Korea's status. Hosting the World Cup enhanced Korea's global standing. He dismisses other countries with an insular worldview. He disregards other nations with a narrow worldview. The economics lecture gave me many benefits. The economics lecture provided me with numerous benefits. Severe nausea can occur in the early stages of pregnancy. Intense nausea may occur in the early stages of pregnancy. Her waltz performance astounded me. Her waltz performance left me astounded. I donated to the facility to help needy children. I made a donation to the facility to assist underprivileged children. European countries established an economic federation. European nations formed an economic federation. The speaker mediated between the opposition and the ruling party members. The speaker acted as a mediator between the opposition and the ruling party members. The area was reduced to ruins due to bombing. The area was left in ruins due to the bombing. In the fall, a locust swarm ate all the crops. During the fall, a locust swarm devoured all the crops. When making bread, yeast is added to make the dough rise. When baking bread, yeast is added to cause the dough to rise. She is a seeker who always pursues the truth. She is a seeker who constantly pursues the truth. The witness requested police custody until the court session. The witness requested police custody until the court hearing. The servants of the castle were obedient to the Lord. The servants of the castle were dutiful to the Lord. His complaints were underlying money issues. His complaints were rooted in financial concerns. Stocks should be assessed with awareness of investment risks. Stocks should be evaluated with consideration of investment risks. The pastor prayed at the altar in the chapel. The pastor offered prayers at the altar in the chapel. A lot of heat in the scalp can lead to hair loss. Excessive heat in the scalp may result in hair loss. I drank plenty of water to avoid dehydration. I drank ample water to prevent dehydration. I studied the formation process of the sun and earth. I studied the formation of the sun and earth. I really regret my hasty decision at that time. I deeply regret the hasty decision I made at that time. Wind and solar are renewable energy resources. Wind and solar are sustainable energy resources. The journalist wrote an article about the education system reform. The journalist composed an article on the reform of the education system. Expanding healthcare insurance is of great desirability as a policy. Expanding healthcare insurance is highly desirable as a policy. He enjoys occasional hikes with his friend. He takes occasional hikes with his friend. I couldn't submit the assignment that the teacher gave. I was unable to submit the assignment that the teacher had given. She was a coward who was afraid to even touch a puppy. She was a coward who feared even touching a puppy. The FBI failed in the mission due to inaccurate information. The FBI failed in its mission due to inaccurate information. This abstraction is an authentic painting by Picasso. This abstraction is an original painting by Picasso. The U.S. military sent reinforcement troops to the battlefield. The U.S. military deployed reinforcement troops to the battlefield. I was disappointed by your stupidity for believing the scammer's words. I was disappointed by your foolishness in believing the scammer's words. He professed his innocence to the police officer. He declared his innocence to the police officer. The Jindo dog is known as a loyal dog to its owner. The Jindo dog is known for its loyalty to its owner. I became a marine biologist studying whales. I became a marine biologist researching whales. She ripped the copy paper lengthwise. She tore the copy paper lengthwise. The archer drew his bow and released an arrow toward the target. The archer pulled back his bow and shot an arrow toward the target. The monster was finally driven into the dark abyss. The monster was eventually driven into the dark abyss. She went to study abroad in America to broaden her horizons. She went to study abroad in America to expand her horizons. The Eskimos used sledges pulled by dogs. The Eskimos used sleds drawn by dogs. We live in a humane society where we help each other. We live in a compassionate society where we support one another. The pilot asked to turn off the electronic devices. The pilot requested that the electronic devices be turned off. She refused my goodwill to help. She rejected my offer to assist. Smoke containing toxins was released into the sky from the factory. Smoke containing toxins was emitted into the sky from the factory. He completed the project entirely by himself. He completed the project entirely on his own. I dampened the sponge in water to clean the window. I moistened the sponge in water to clean the window. The scammer tried to defraud me of my money. The scammer attempted to swindle me out of my money. His kindness in helping others was reciprocated. His kindness in helping others was returned in kind. Astrology believes that stars and life are interconnected. Astrology holds that stars and life are interrelated. The new CEO revitalized the company's sales. The new CEO rejuvenated the company's sales. A commemoration event was held yesterday to celebrate the victory. A commemoration event was organized yesterday to celebrate the victory. The company restricted its expenditures due to losses. The company limited its expenses due to losses. Subordinates should be respectful to superiors. Subordinates must show respect to their superiors. He made a commitment to pay back his debt by next year. He committed to repaying his debt by next year. She is so frenetic that she can't focus properly on her work. She is so frantic that she struggles to focus properly on her work. Mother Teresa was venerated by people all over the world. Mother Teresa was revered by people around the world. The competition between the two players has now become inevitable. The competition between the two players has now become unavoidable. Many cows and sheep were being raised on the ranch. Many cows and sheep were being raised on the ranch. This vegetable is tolerant to the cold and is grown in the winter. This vegetable is resistant to the cold and is cultivated in the winter. Control devices were installed to prevent oil spillage. Control devices were implemented to prevent oil spills. The interviewer's unexpected question bewildered me. The interviewer's unexpected question confused me. Apparently, they are going to divorce soon. It seems that they are going to divorce soon. You need a rational reason if you want to quit your job. You must have a rational reason if you wish to quit your job. Her fashion show lacked originality. Her fashion show lacked creativity. She participated in the excavation of the ancient ruins. She took part in the excavation of the ancient ruins.